California Governor Gavin Newsom is now calling his city's homeless encampments unacceptable, which is odd since he's the guy who, made them acceptable, turning sidewalks into red carpet events for drug addicts, thieves, and unemployed CNN anchors. On Monday, he urged cities to ban the camps from sidewalks, parks, and other public areas. So after years of denying the problem, he's now pretending.
I was on KBLA yesterday, with my friend Tavis Smiley. I'm an investor and a supporter of that station. And he said, who do you want for running president? I mentioned, I think you'd be good at the job. Not this year, we know.
Greg Gutfeld and Bill Maher just turned Gavin Newsom into political confetti, shredding his ego with sarcasm sharper than California's tax hikes. From his obsession with optics to a parade of failed policies, they didn't just roast him, they incinerated him. Newsom's glossy speeches and empty promises were no match for their ruthless wit. If you thought his hair was slick, wait until you see how smoothly they sliced through his entire career. This wasn't commentary. It was comedic demolition.
Are now the party of disorder. Turns out the only system they had was wokeism, and it rotted any basic principles the party had to begin with. Which is why, like Gavin himself, they're left looking at 2028's hopes going up in flames. And this time, no one is going to help them put it out.
I see today the Trump administration, they talked about the fact that California had a rule that schools cannot be required to notify parents if their kids in school have changed their gender, their pronouns. That's the kind of thing, even though it doesn't affect a lot of people, that makes a lot of people go, well, you know what? That's the party without common sense. Now, if that's your state, how are you?
Well, I just disagree with that. I mean, the law was you would be fired. A teacher would be fired if a teacher did not report or snitch on a kid talking about their gender identity. I just think that was wrong. I think teachers should teach. I don't think they should be required to turn in kids. And by the way,
we're talking about their parents. How can you snitch? The idea of a snitch and a parent to me doesn't compute.
Well, I don't. But what is the job of a teacher? It's to teach. If Johnny's talking about some identity issue or some issue about liking someone of the same sex, is the teacher's job.
Greg Gutfeld didn't just stroll into the studio that day. He stormed like a man who just found out California slapped a new tax on sarcasm. Gavin Newsom was a golden goose, and Gutfeld arrived fully armed with every roast jab and comedic missile he could muster. Wearing his trademark smirk, he dove right into what he dubbed the Barbie Governor Chronicles, pointing out how Newsom looked like he'd stepped straight out of Malibu politician playset, plastic charm included, but missing the assembly instructions for common sense.
Meanwhile, Newsom lurks outside the White House like a greedy relative in the parking lot of a hospice. Maybe he is the perfect replacement for Joe. Just like him, the corruption is baked right in.
If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Greg kicked things off by calling Newsom the first politician to try turning an entire state into a luxury wine commercial. According to Gutfeld, California under Newsom wasn't really about governing. It was all about curating a vibe. He compared Newsom's approach to politics to a guy who thinks spraying Febreze in a burning house will fix everything. Homelessness was exploding. Crime was skyrocketing. But Newsom was too busy talking about the ozone layer while stepping over used needles outside City Hall.
Denying the problem, he's now pretending to fix it, which is like putting on a condom as you're leaving a whorehouse. Who hasn't?
What's a condom?
But as always, when a far-left Dem runs for national office, he acts like a Republican. This is where the left is really pro-trans. Suddenly, they grow.
Gutfeld wondered how someone could obsess over carbon emissions while ignoring the human mess piling up on San Francisco sidewalks. He dug into the contradictions. Newsom talks like he's out to save the planet, but runs California like he's auditioning to play Lex Luthor's eco-friendly cousin. He's a guy who lectures farmers about water conservation while wasting millions of gallons on vanity projects. So absurd, even Hollywood wouldn't greenlight them. And Gutfeld didn't stop there.
And he's an evil snake motherfucker. I don't know how to describe it. You see what he just did there, and Bill got it right. Somehow it's snitching if the parent finds out. If the teacher says, oh, your kid has been going by other names and changing pronouns and dressing up this way, you don't know about that as the parent. That's the snitch. It's the parent's job to raise the child.
Greg joked that Gavin's hair is the only thing in California with more structure and funding than its public schools. The guy's got more gel than solutions, and you can practically hear it crunch under the weight of his own ego. Gutfeld pointed out that every time Newsom talks, it feels like a TED Talk delivered by someone who just discovered what Wi-Fi is. He's got all the dramatic hand gestures, the polished tone, the impressive buzzwords, but absolutely none of the substance. It's like someone stuffed an encyclopedia into a fortune cookie and gave it Botox. A Newsom speech, Greg said, is the perfect sleep aid for anyone who finds watching paint dry just a bit too thrilling.
So Newsom is fed up with tent cities, the crime, the urban decay? No, he's not mad about that stuff. He's mad you noticed. It's like a criminal telling a jury he's sorry he robbed 25 banks when he's just sorry he got caught on the 26th. Because this isn't some spontaneous crisis. It's a man-made disaster like Chernobyl or Fox and Friends.
And don't get Gutfeld started on Newsom's obsession with climate. He described Gavin as a kind of guy who could be standing in front of a burning Walgreens, smoke curling through his perfectly whitened teeth, and still insist climate change is the real cause of the fire. Greg mocked how Newsom somehow manages to blame rising sea levels for high crime rates, traffic jams, and even the occasional statewide blackout. According to Gutfeld, if you let him ramble long enough, Gavin would probably credit solar energy for his own hair highlights. Greg didn't hold back on Newsom's pandemic hypocrisy either, painting him as a guy who told everyone to stay home and mask up while secretly booking himself a private room at the swankiest restaurant in town. He didn't just break his own rules. He pirouetted over them like a ballerina raised on hypocrisy and Pinot Noir. Meanwhile, people were fleeing California like it was a sinking cruise ship staffed entirely by smug bureaucrats. Gutfeld joked that if Newsom were a landlord, the whole building would be empty while he stood out front handing out glossy flyers about how great the neighborhood used to be. Businesses bailed, families fled, yet Gavin kept babbling about equity like he was handing out coupons for enlightenment.
It was looking bad there for a while, and we still don't have enough water in the Colorado River and all this stuff. And then whenever I read 80% of the water goes to agriculture. Almonds. No one ever asked you about almonds? I see today the Trump administration, they talked about the fact that California had a rule that schools cannot be required to notify parents if their kids in school have changed their gender, their pronouns. That's the kind of thing, even though it doesn't affect a lot of people, that makes a lot of people go, well, you know what? That's the party without common sense. Now, if that's your state, how are you? Well,
I just disagree with that. I mean, the law was you would be fired. A teacher would be fired if a teacher did not report or snitch on a kid talking about their gender identity. I just think that was wrong. I think teachers should teach. I don't think they should be required to turn in kids. And by the way,
we're talking about their parents. How can you snitch? The idea of a snitch and a parent to me doesn't compute.
Well, I don't. But what is the job of a teacher? It's to teach. If Johnny's talking about some identity issue or some issue about liking someone of the same sex, is the teacher's job.
Gutfeld said the only real growth industry left in California was the U-Haul business. And even they were running out of trucks headed east. Switching gears, Bill Maher joined in later that evening, wearing that familiar look of man fresh from a dinner party where someone dared to bring up Marxism between bites of kale. And when it came to roasting Gavin Newsom, Maher didn't hold back. He opened with a dry observation that Newsom was a physical embodiment of what liberals think competence looks like. But beneath that Kendall exterior was a political mind powered mostly by green slogans and guilt trips. Maher leaned into Newsom's pretentious vibe, saying Gavin talks like a guy who just got back from a soul-searching retreat, but forgot to actually find a soul. He smelled like progress, Maher said, but it faded quicker than you could say rolling blackouts. Bill quipped that Newsom's greatest political trick might be convincing Californians that their misery was morally superior to comfort. You're not suffering, you're sacrificing, he'd say, and people actually believed it. Maher summed it up perfectly. Living in California felt like surviving in a failed state with a fabulous Instagram filter.
They like the show, okay?
And the man who made it acts like he had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
It's pure government grift, shoving you down a flight of stairs and then making you pay for the handrail. We've been lied to for years that homelessness is all about affordable housing. Fentanyl isn't the problem, it's that loan officer at the bank. Yet as we walked to work, we never saw families or kids, just men. So strung out on fentanyl, they looked like they were playing Twister.
Bill mocked the way Newsom treats electricity like it's a dangerous substance that must be rationed, but only after powering up every conference room he visits for another round of climate alarmism. He wondered how a state blessed with endless sunshine could still manage to be so literally and politically in the dark. Maher said Newsom's policies were the political equivalent of cutting off your arm to stop a hangnail. Excessive, dramatic, and ultimately pointless. Maher also couldn't resist poking fun at Newsom's presidential ambitions, saying the man has far more ambition than actual results. He compared him to a reality show contestant who's convinced they're winning while the entire audience is begging for them to be voted off. Gavin thinks he's the future of the Democratic Party, Maher said, asterisk, but in reality, he's just a fancy new label slapped on the same stale bottle of coastal elitism. Asterisk, whether it's housing, education, or healthcare, Newsom always manages to deliver a poetic monologue about the problems, but never actually solves them.
See, Newsom wasn't just ignoring the problem, he enabled it because Dems were in a woke crouch, terrified of their loony base. But now that he's seeing the White House, he's got a brand new act, a common sense centrist. Just a soccer dad in khakis, fed up with crime and chaos. It's all bull. A costume, a political drag show, and the kids this drag queen is reading to are the
Maher tore into Newsom's handling of education, like a man whose patience had finally run out. He pointed out that California's public schools rank somewhere between catastrophic and please homeschool your kids. Yet Gavin somehow finds more time to lecture other states than fix his own backyard. Maher called Newsom the substitute teacher of American politics. Charismatic, sharply dressed, but completely incapable of keeping the classroom under control. As a cherry on top, Maher said Gavin's idea of crisis leadership was to schedule yet another press conference in front of the golden backdrop, deliver bold new buzzwords, and vanish before anyone could ask a real question. He compared California's homelessness policy to a game of whack-a-mole, except the mallet is a government grant and the moles just pop up 3 blocks away. Gutfeld piled on, saying Gavin throws money at problems like a DJ tossing glow sticks at a blackout. Flashy at first, but completely useless when the lights stay off and reality hits.
It's like the wildfires. Gavin blames climate change when it was his corrupt bureaucracy. Since the Palisades fire, which destroyed 6,000 buildings, only 4 permits have been issued for rebuilding. Did climate change cause that? Hell no. So like the fires, Newsom let homelessness run wild. He allowed tens of billions of dollars to be swallowed up by a maze of consultants, nonprofits, and bureaucrats who created poop maps.
He mocked the way Newsom handled crime, comparing him to a lifeguard who lectures swimmers on proper diving form while the pool is crawling with sharks. Under Gavin's watch, California managed to turn leniency into policy and accountability into a myth. According to Gutfeld, crime wasn't illegal anymore. It was just misunderstood. If someone stole your car, you weren't a victim. You were part of a social experiment on equity and economic frustration. Maher jumped in with his own take, saying Newsom was the kind of leader who thought hugging the problem would magically make it disappear. He marveled at how many headlines bent over backwards to spin incompetence into innovation, joking that if Newsom tripped over a traffic cone, the media would call a bold new step in urban exploration. Maher quipped that Gavin had the press wrapped tighter than a pair of vegan yoga pants, and every time he stumbled, reporters would hand him a yoga mat and insist it was just part of his enlightened political journey.
I feel like the last couple of years you've purposely picked this fight with the red states. I mean, the DeSantis. Yeah, but I don't want to live in the Civil War.
I agree with that.
You know what? Well, but you seem like you purposely want to set up this dichotomy between, oh, this is a blue state and that's a red state, and I don't want to live in that country. I like Florida.
I'm with you. And by the way,
as for Newsom's ever-present smugness, Gutfeld called it the only renewable energy source California has actually managed to harness. He said Gavin's face always carries the expression of someone who just corrected you on the difference between gelato and ice cream. Pure, unearned superiority with a hint of almond milk. Gutfeld joked that if smugness could put out wildfires, Newsom would solve every problem in the state overnight. Maher wrapped up his roast by calling Newsom the love child of good intentions and terrible execution. A man who promises the moon, delivers a glow stick, and then acts shocked when everyone's still stuck in the dark. He's perfectly polished on the outside but hollow within, like an avocado that costs $20 yet still manages to taste like disappointment. Bill laughed and said that if Gavin ever made it to the White House, America would finally know what it feels like to be a San Francisco taxpayer. Broke, bewildered, and oddly proud of it.
Unions used to sell maps of celebrity homes, not landmines. Now, instead of sightseeing, tourists play hopscotch so their shoes don't get hepatitis. And when residents complain, they're called cruel. And now we're supposed to believe Gavin? Hell no. All the problems of the last decade were based on his and his party's.
And yet neither Gutfeld nor Maher was finished. There was still plenty more absurdity to spotlight and hypocrisy to slice apart. Newsom had become the perfect roast subject, not just because of what he said, but because of what he represented. He was a gleaming mascot of a coastal political machine powered by catchy buzzwords, funded by fantasy, and built on a foundation of elegant disaster. And both men were only getting warmed up. Gutfeld circled back with a smirk, predicting that Gavin's legacy would be a bronze statue of himself holding a reusable shopping bag, while everything around him burned to the ground. He said Newsom governed like a man who read the manual for a Tesla, but then tried to apply it to running a dump truck. Maher jumped in from his corner of dry logic, adding that Gavin's dream version of California looked like a utopia sponsored by Whole Foods, yet smelled like decline fermenting in a compost bin. Between the self-congratulation, the decay, and the delusion, both men knew the punchline was still writing itself.